All right, so we're doing a special series here, Reed, about how to sharpen up your game in the off season, ahead of the season, because we all want to play well.
Yeah.
And the first one we're going to focus on, putting related, is making sure that you hit the sweet spot of your putter. It's so important if you want to improve your putting this off season.
No, it's the truth. And, we live here in the Northeast. So, there's a real hard off season in golf here. And so a lot of times, the idea of going out to a putting green and getting a couple hours of work is not even a possibility.
Yeah,
so,
not at all. We're practicing putting from home.
Yeah. So just good things that you can do so that you can kind of hit the ground running, make putts. And, the most important thing, and one thing that like PGA Tour players do so well and then 12, 14 handicaps don't, is the amount of variability in where they actually strike on their putter face. If you have a consistent strike and you're hitting the sweet spot, literally the ball will come off exactly the same. The smash factor stays the same on the ball, and it makes all the difference in the world. So focusing on that is definitely a key.
Yeah, and it's something that I've been doing a lot this off season. I use these things called putt dots, where they're little rubber things you stick on the toe and the heel, sort of close to the center of the putter face. And I found it's really helpful in two ways. The first is that it seems to like iron out some of the kinks in my stroke.
Yeah.
Like just trying to hit the sweet spot forces you to be really efficient with the way you actually stroke the putt, really, because you don't really have much time to waste.
Yeah, honestly, you just set these up, whether it's a putting clip. I tend to like kind of the dots. I actually have a stainless steel putter face, so it's magnetic. So I actually was able to just put two magnets, and because I actually like striking the actual face of the putter, it just feels more real to me than if you put one of these putting clips on. And then you just literally go up to a wall and try to hit 20 putts in a row, not actually hitting your clips,
It's so important because even though you're just hitting like 25 footers in a row trying to hit the sweet spot, it really helps you on long putts too, because like you said, it makes sure that the smash factor for every putt you hit is about the same. So your distance control is going to get really good because of it, even though you're not practicing long putts.
No, absolutely. Like the data came out about that. You think smash factor, you think like driver mostly, you think iron shots. It is so vital on your putting. And, the difference between a miss hit and actually striking the putter solidly on a 40-foot putt can make the difference of 6+ feet, which is the difference between a 2-putt or a 3-putt.
Yeah, absolutely.
So getting good, consistent, solid strikes over and over is probably the most valuable thing you could do for your entire short game.
Especially when you pair it with the second thing we're going to talk about, which is like really nailing down your start line. Now, this is something that pros are like obsessed with their putting. That what they'll do is they'll draw like a chalk line on the ground, or they'll use like some kind of putting gate, and they'll just use that, and their goal, they'll place it about maybe a foot in front of their ball, and they're just trying to putt it through this little gate. And why is that so important?
Actually, it's funny. Like Tiger Woods, if you want to see like what he does, and he's done his whole career, he'll literally get the two tees on each side of his putter face, which forces him to hit it off the center, and then he'll just hit 3-footer after 3-footer. So it's just all hit it solid and get it online. Hit it solid and get it online. But yeah, it's so vital because what you're actually doing is you're learning to control your club face. When you get that ball started online for the first foot, whether you get a chalk line, I was going to say, a weird hack is to go ahead and get some, toilet paper, which is, you put it right in the middle of toilet paper, you get 3 feet of toilet paper, and you just want to make sure you just putt down the center of it. It's a weird thing you could do inside, but just getting your club face square at impact to just get that ball started online. Once you nail those two big fundamentals, 90% of your putting woes go away.
The reason it's so important, and the reason why coaches talk about it, pros talk about starting your putts on the correct line, is because the margins for error on putts are just absolutely tiny. If you start your ball a tiny bit right of where you're intending, you'll maybe missing that putt when you start getting to 5, 6, 7 feet, because the margins are so thin. So that's why they obsess over it. That's why they do things like putt down a ruler, because it forces them to just start their putt where they're intending to.
Yeah, and it seems very simple, and it's like, well, yeah, of course I try to start it where I intended to. When you focus on it and you actually do it in a drill form, meaning you put a chalk line down and you're getting the feedback on whether or not you are actually starting on the line that you think you're starting it on, you usually find out that you're not. And then as you drill yourself, you can improve on it very quickly. And that's like one of these great ways going into the season. You can put it down on a carpet. If you do have access to a putting green, a chalk line's fine. And it doesn't have to be a whole lot. And that's kind of going into the next point is you don't have to practice these all the time for 3 hours. It's better to just do short sessions, 10 or 15 minutes of these drills 3 or 4 times a week. It would just be way, way more valuable than like a 2-hour session.
Yeah, it's a really important point because I think a lot of golfers, like the rest of us, will say, oh, well, I don't really have time to like spend 2 hours on a practice putting green, so I'm just not going to bother doing it from home. When really they're thinking about it all wrong, right? Like I've been doing a ton of work on my own putting this off season, just trying to do what the pros do, which is set up one of these putting stations, draw a line on the ground with a Sharpie on a putting green that I have at home, like a makeshift one, and then use a couple dots, try to hit it out the center, and then just squeeze in 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes of practice at a time. And just, if you're spending just 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes every few days, you're going to be amazed at how well your putting gets or how good your putting gets just putting in a little bit of practice.
If you love doing it and you want to do an hour-long session, you can. But I would say after you get past that 15-minute mark, it's kind of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
You really want a lot of good focus. You want to kind of get comfortable, and those are the key fundamentals. It's not actually rocket science. You'd be surprised what these PGA Tour people are doing is actually quite simple. They're making sure that their club face is striking the putt online. They're making sure they're hitting it off the center, and those are the keys they're focused on. And doing short sessions practicing that, you can almost do it anywhere, and it will make a massive impact.
Yeah, and this is something I learned too from just watching the way those guys practice putting, is that they almost think of them more as like sync-up sessions than big practice sessions.
Yeah.
That like they only spend like 10, 15 minutes a day doing this, hitting short putts, but that's because they're not trying to overhaul anything.
No.
And frankly,
it's almost a warm-up.
Yeah, and frankly, the putting stroke is a very simple motion, even for the rest of us, that there's not much work to be done from that respect for most of us. Don't get me wrong, like some people have better putting strokes than others. But really what they're trying to do is make sure that they're setting up to the ball the same way every time, that they have a feel where they're getting the ball started on line, that they're trying to sort of sniff out these imperfections in their putting strokes before they even arrive. That's when the sweet spot stuff comes along. And if they just do a little bit of work like that every day, then they can go and practice breaking putts and long putts and short putts and play games and things.
If you really get very, very regular practicing these, it will not necessarily mean that you're going to make every single long curvy putt. Once the season happens, you do need to go and get practice on your left to right downhillers, like long 40-foot putts. But having a consistent smash factor and starting that ball on target just puts you so far ahead. So you will be a lot more consistent on those long putts or even those curvy putts, because your body will sense that you will come off with a similar smash factor and you will get that ball started online.
Yeah, so I guess like in a nutshell, to the Golf Digest listener, viewer at home, they're like, cool, I'm sold. I'm going to start practicing my putting from home. Like, what do you recommend them do? Like, I know something that's worked for me is like finding a putting mat. I personally really like using a mirror because I feel like that just allows me to make sure that my eyes are sort of relative to the golf ball.
Yeah, Zach Johnson's like religious about it.
Yeah, just like the goal is to help make sure I set up the same way every time, put a couple clips on my putter, and then I just 10 minutes a day doing something like that. I mean, I know you've done something similar too.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I actually do 20 in a row before I go play golf. But if you have a carpet, maybe put a piece of tape down, something like that will give you some feedback on whether you're getting that ball started online. Put some sort of clip that will make sure that you get feedback if you do not hit it off the center. Like I said, I'm able to put little magnets on mine. He has the putter dots, which are kind of, you almost paste them on, and then just hit 20 or 30 putts in a row, starting it online off the center. And that alone will make you far and away better going into this season.
Yep, and you don't need to do it perfectly every time. You don't need to do, 20 in a row if you only have been doing it for 10 minutes or whatever. But just, I think the underlying point here is a little bit every day or every few days can go a long way.
Oh yeah, big time.